On February 13th of this year, my brother Chris called me and he said, yo, listen, there's these things called CryptoPunks. They're the first ever NFT experiment in history. I think they're going to be skyrocketing in valuation, so we should probably get our friends together, pool our money, and purchase one. I said, listen, there's no need for any of that. I got you. What do you need? $200-$300? He said the cheapest one is $16,000. I said, American dollars? We should probably get our friends together, pool money, and get one. So I picked up the phone and I thought to myself, do I know any degenerates that are crazy enough to get one of these masterpieces? Now, luckily for me, all of my friends fit that criteria. So I called a couple of my boys and I told them, listen, I got this speculative investment. There's an extremely high 1% chance we all become multi-millionaires, retire early, and never work a day in our lives. And there's a 99% chance we lose this money and never see it again. Are you guys in? So everybody threw in money. I collected the 8 Ethereum, which was $16,000 at the time. We gave it to Chris, and within minutes, we were the proud owners of the gay pirate Gustav Galapagos III. Now, I know you're probably thinking, with friends like me, who needs enemies? Why would I scam my friends into some crazy scheme like this? But in my defense, or Chris's defense, the CryptoPunk is now worth $50,000 to $60,000 at the time of this video. What's even crazier though is that the most expensive punk ever sold for $7.5 million. I know what you're probably thinking, how can a JPEG image that anybody on the internet can see for free be worth millions of dollars? But before we understand why people would spend millions on a couple of pixels, first we need to understand why people would spend millions on a blank white canvas. In 2015, this white canvas by Robert Ryman sold for over $20 million at an auction. So in order to understand what makes this masterpiece so valuable, let's run a couple of thought experiments. So let's pretend that I was the person who went to that auction house with the painting and asked for $20 million. But instead of Robert Ryman, I told him that I painted it. I'll probably get laughed and have security escort me out of the building, right? So why is that? Basically, that tells us that the value of the painting is not derived from the time, material, craftsmanship, or effort put into it. The value comes from its creator. Just like celebrity signatures, this autograph is not worth hundreds of dollars because of the penmanship or the special ink that was used. This is worth hundreds because it's by Michael fucking Jackson. So the art world has decided that Robert Ryman is an important historical figure who played a major part in reshaping the narrative of art history. Therefore, his work is also valuable. And the reason people are spending so much money to own his work is because we have a natural desire to attach ourselves to a narrative that's bigger and greater than ourselves. We want to own an exclusive and rare piece of history, to elevate our social status, to be able to say that we have a Robert Ryman painting back home. And given the fact that art is going to be desired pretty much until the end of time, as well as the fact that Robert Ryman is dead, which means that there's going to be a limited amount of his work out in the world, this makes it a good investment that's probably going to increase in valuation as more time goes by. Okay, so let's run another thought experiment. This time, I take a perfect forgery of that painting. I'm talking an identical, indistinguishable painting down to the last microscopic brushstroke. I go to the auction house and I say, this is also from Robert Ryman. I want $10 million for it. The first thing they're going to do is probably take it and inspect it. They're going to do a spectrogram analysis, look at it from a microscopic perspective, scan it by an x-ray, and it's going to pass all those tests, right? Because it's a perfect replica. But then what they're going to ask me for is probably one of the most important words in the art economic world, which is, do you have the proof of provenance? Now, what provenance means is a documentation trail that ties that painting back to Robert Ryman. They want to be able to trace it. Who owned it? How did you get it? Was it sold? For how much? Did you get it through a divorce? Was it passed down or inherited? It's much like a crime scene where they want to prove that this painting came from this person. And if you don't have the documentation, they're not going to take it serious and authenticate the painting. In 2017, for the first time in over 100 years, a Da Vinci painting surfaced in a public sale. The Salvator Mundi is only one of 20 known paintings by Da Vinci, so it's no surprise that on November 2017, it was purchased for a record-breaking $450 million by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, making it the most expensive painting ever sold. But then it disappeared from the public eye. For nearly 2 years, nobody seemed to know where it was, and the Crown Prince kept quiet. A couple of years later in 2019, it was scheduled to appear in the Paris Louvre for a large Da Vinci exhibition, but once again it was nowhere to be found. However, it was listed in the official catalog, but it wasn't attributed to Da Vinci. As it turns out, experts couldn't come to an agreement if it was painted solely by Da Vinci himself or with the help of his students in his workshop. Some experts argued that the eyes were uneven, the left hand was poorly drawn, or that the crystal orb did not properly distort the reflection of light. Either way, this absolutely demolished its valuation. Although there's no exact figures, just for context, the painting was purchased for just $10,000 back in 2005, before it was believed to be an original Da Vinci. As it turns out, the reason it went missing in the first place is because the Provenance dispute scared the prince from exhibiting the painting publicly to avoid embarrassment. So that shows us that the roles of these auction houses isn't just to sell paintings. They also verify and authenticate. They're institutions of truth, so to speak. And without their stamp of approval, our painting is pretty much worthless. Now, this is where NFTs come in. An NFT is not an image, it's not a picture, it's not a file. Simply put, an NFT is a digital certificate of authenticity for a given file. And what makes NFTs so useful is the fact that they're publicly recorded on the blockchain for anybody to see and examine. So anybody can verify who owned the piece of art, when it was transferred to who, how much it was sold for, etc. And this absolutely solves the provenance problem. Why is that important? Well, today most art is digital, whether it's a song, a movie, an animation, or a photo. Most art lives in the form of a digital file. And the problem with the digital is that it's infinitely replicatable, which is great if you're a pirate or a consumer that doesn't want to pay for any of their media, but it's an absolute nightmare for artists that are trying to monetize their art and earn a living doing what they love. So if I sold you a digital piece of art for, let's say, $10, you could copy and paste it 100 times and give it to all your friends, giving them no reason to buy it from me ever again, right? Because the 100th copy is identical to the original in terms of quality. There is no difference. Now, what makes NFTs interesting is that they give the artist the ability to take a file and attach an NFT, which is a digital certificate of authenticity, specifically to this file. So in a sense, the certificate becomes more important in proving ownership. You can think of it as having a digital artist sign a digital autograph to that one specific copy. So all your friends can enjoy the exact same image. They can look at it, have it as a wallpaper, but only you have the signed, autographed original. But this is just scratching the tip of the iceberg in terms of possibilities. Because NFTs are digital assets, that means they're almost programmable. You could think of them as software, and this opens the door to some really interesting opportunities. So number one is split ownership. A couple of months ago, Mark Cuban sold this animation of himself dancing as an NFT, but the way he set it up is that he created multiple ownership. He gave the ability for 10 people to own it, so there was actually 10 NFTs associated with this image. Now, the other interesting thing you could do is perpetual licensing. In this exact same animation, Mark Cuban entered in the terms of agreement that he retains 10% perpetual licensing. Now, what this means is that every single person who ever sells this exact NFT, he's going to get a 10% cut of every single sale. Meaning, if I sold you a painting for $10 and then you turn around and you sold it for $100,000, I only get $10, right? It's your business what you do with it. In the NFT world, I can get a 10% cut from your sale. So if you sold it for 100,000, I get 10% of that. And if the person after you sells it for another million, I get 10% of that. Another interesting area is NFTs as credentials. So imagine, for example, that Mark Cuban decided that those 10 NFTs he sold now function as NBA passes to his NBA team, the Dallas Mavericks, giving the owners exclusive access to his games. The same could be used for your favorite musician. All of a sudden, the NFT you got from buying one of his songs functions as a concert ticket, or it gives you a sneak peek into his latest album that's on the way. Okay, next up is the concept of ownership. Now, this is a really complicated topic, which I'm going to save for another video, but just to give you a little taste of what's possible, imagine that your favorite artist drops a song and he creates a split ownership for 100 people to own a piece of that song. So those 100 fans effectively own the rights to that song. So let's say a movie studio approaches them and says, we want to pay you $100,000 for the right to license the song in our movie. All the NFT owners get to vote. They pull out their phone, they cast their vote, the majority says yes. The studio gives them $100,000, which gets split 100. So all the NFT owners actually made $1,000 in the process of deciding to lease out the song to the studio. Now, this is not some theoretical future. This is actually already happening to some degree. Linkin Park's Mike Shinoda has already sold a song for $30,000 in the form of an NFT. Kevin Smith, the director behind classics like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, is selling his next horror film as an NFT. The experiments that are taking place online are really really interesting with new projects popping up week after week. I definitely plan on making subsequent videos covering the NFT space because it is so wide and interesting. If you enjoyed the video, please consider sharing and subscribing. If you have any questions, comments, or you just wanted to catch up, you can find me on the Discord. Link is in the bio, and thank you for watching.